Workers are set to down tools at Ford. The National Union of Metal Workers of SA plans to embark on an indefinite strike at the company, which could disrupt production and throw global supply chain processes into disarray. NUMSA General Secretary Irvin Jim says Ford is refusing to share its profits with workers and that workers are angry that Ford is trying to deny them bonuses. NUMSA served the company with a 48-hour strike notice. ArcelorMittal has shelved plans to shut its long steel operations. The move, according to CEO Kobus Verster, will save 3,500 direct jobs and thousands more indirectly. Back in February, the company delayed the unit's wind down for up to 6 months while it worked on sustainability interventions. Some short-term efforts included port and rail service improvements, which were agreed on with Transnet, and the government's move not to extend the ban on exports of scrap steel also put the group in a good position. It says progress has been slower than anticipated, and while it's experienced some disappointment, management has decided to keep the operations running to allow its short, medium and long-term initiatives to be fully explored. Those comments accompanied a performance outlook. ArcelorMittal says while the longs business broadly performed within expectations, its interim results will be negatively impacted by the difficult domestic and regional trading conditions. It's also cited the impact of operational interruptions on 2 blast furnaces at Vanderbijlpark. As such, its headline loss per share is expected to more than double to around 96 cents. Sibanye-Stillwater is tweaking the way it's operating in SA. The miner plans to consolidate its gold and PGM operations, saying this will optimize the region for sustained, safe production. The news follows the conclusion of Section 189 consultations at its gold unit, where a decision was made to continue operating the Beatrix 1 shaft for now. Sibanye says this is based on there being no net losses for an average trailing 3-month period. If that condition is not met, the shaft will be closed. Sibanye has added that following the talks, over 600 employees chose voluntary separation or early retirement packages. 111 employees have been retrenched and 1,130 contractor employees have been impacted. Maersk's allowed to keep its Transnet tender. That's as the Mediterranean shipping company's legal challenge to nullify a contract between those two firms was dismissed. The multi-year contract follows a tender published in 2022. It involves developing vacant land at Transnet Park aimed at increasing rail capacity between Balcon Precinct and the Port of Cape Town. MSC challenged the contract, saying the scoring used by Transnet in awarding it to Maersk was in breach of SA's procurement rules and that Maersk's non-compliant documents were used for scoring. The High Court in Pretoria, meanwhile, found that the tender adjudication was above board. South Africa is on track to exit the grey list by June next year. That's according to Treasury. It says it's satisfied with the outcomes of the Financial Action Task Force's recent meetings, with SA having largely addressed 8 of the 22 action items in line with specified deadlines. Treasury has added that while SA has made progress, it remains a tough challenge to address the remaining 14 items by February. That deadline needs to be met for the country to be considered for removal from the list. If it's missed, then SA will need to continue reporting to the FATF every 4 months until all the deficiencies have been addressed. Umgeni Uthukela-Water, meanwhile, has a new chief executive. The state-owned entity has named Sandile Psychology Mkhize as its head effective this month. Umgeni Uthukela-Water, which was established in 1974, is the largest supplier of bulk potable water in KwaZulu-Natal. And a recent study shows that environmental objectives in companies have taken a backseat, with climate policies seemingly becoming an initiative that is becoming less of a priority in the EU. Here's our reporter Anati Devu with more.
That's right, Zinati. In the EU, environmental goals in companies seem to have indeed taken a backseat. We know that for years, no corporate report was complete without an environmental report and with goals of climate-friendly production. But it seems that things are changing. And for more on this, let's cross over to Deutsche Welle's Lars Halter, who is currently standing by in Berlin. Lars, thank you so much for your time. Let's start off with that study that shows that green initiatives aren't as important as they used to be. What can you tell us?
Thanks for having me. It's true, sadly, lots of companies who have spent years, decades even, coming up with ambitious plans on how to be better corporate citizens are scaling back their goals now. Let me name a few here. Cruise lines Hapag-Lloyd, AIDA and TUI Cruises have said that they want to run their fleets climate neutral by 2040, and now they've pushed that time to 2050. Mercedes-Benz said they would sell almost only electric vehicles from 2030 on. Now it's half of their sales are supposed to be EVs by then. Unilever, that's one of the largest makers of consumer goods in the world, they've planned to use 50% less new plastic by 2026, and now they're saying they want to use 30% less. Amazon has dropped its goals for environmentally friendly shipping options, and energy giants like Shell, BP and Exxon, who for years now have been heavily investing in alternative and sustainable energy projects, have changed course once again, and now they're back to focusing mostly on fossil fuels. There's way more examples than this, and according to that new study, most of the 750 corporations they've asked said that climate and environment is less important to them in terms of policies than some other issues, including necessary cost cuts, cybersecurity, and the digital transformation.
And Lars, why exactly has the mood changed so drastically? What happened?
Yeah, there's lots of reasons. Generally, one would have to admit fewer people currently care about climate activism that we've seen in previous years. Just over the past 5 years or so, we've seen the rise of Fridays for Future. We've seen massive protests all over Germany and Europe, but also other parts of the world with millions of people. That's customers, that's consumers, and they were demanding change. Now, Fridays for Future is less active. It's been replaced by Last Generation and Extinction Rebellion. They are a bit more aggressive and have caused somewhat of a backlash against environmental goals. But of course, that's not all. Environmental policy comes at a price, and it can be really expensive, whether that's investing in new product lines, think cars and EVs, or whether you're changing a company's power supply. Here's an example out of Germany's most industrial area, the so-called Ruhrgebiet. ThyssenKrupp runs a steel mill there, and they wanted to use green hydrogen to power their huge ovens. There actually is a nearby plant that makes green hydrogen, so that seemed like a natural fit. But EU law says that for both companies to benefit from the subsidies they wanted, they have to work within EU regulation, meaning the hydrogen plant has to offer its hydrogen EU-wide, and ThyssenKrupp has to procure their energy EU-wide. Again, meaning those two businesses in the end might never work together, even though they're located within just a few miles from each other and planned up this partnership in the first place. So bureaucracy is also a major source of frustration.
So Lars, what can be done to solve these developments? We know that things are currently not progressive. So how can environmental policies be improved again in the EU?
Well, as so often, it's worth looking at what others are doing. Take China, one of the biggest polluters in the entire world. For the last couple of years, China has invested heavily into alternative energies. Not only are they building more wind turbines and solar panels and export them into the entire world, which of course comes with its own set of problems, including those Chinese dumping prices putting enormous pressure on competitors. But China has also just opened the world's largest solar park in Xinjiang province, a 3.5 gigawatt plant. So they're going all in, as is the US, by the way. For years, mostly under the Trump administration, the US wasn't a major player in environmental policies, and over the past few years of the Biden administration, they've changed course drastically. The Inflation Reduction Act funneled billions of dollars into green energy investment, and it has opened up new jobs as well. So a climate-friendly investment is paying off, and European companies, including German companies, might have to look at that again and reconsider their strategy.
Well, let's leave it there for now. Lars, thank you so much for those insights. That was Deutsche Welle's Lars Halter.